Good morning, Ovidalcy Middle School students. This is Mr. Woolley, and we are going to start with Lesson 5 today. And we're going to talk about understanding subtraction of integers and other rational numbers. And we're going to start over actually on page 28. Alright, our first example uses a number line here. We're going to pretend we're drawing cards and diagramming that out like we have been with adding integers. What we want to do is pretend we're getting a 4 and a 2. So start at 0, move right 4, and then move right 2 on your second arrow, we end up at a 6. So 4 and 2 make 6. Now, we're going to show that discarding or subtracting a positive card is the same as subtracting a positive number, which decreases the value of the hand. So if you had that 4 and a 2, kind of like we had just now, we have a move right 4, move right 2, you're at a 6. Then they have an X over that card, means you're getting rid of it. So I'm getting rid of 2 points, so it takes me back to a 4. So 4 plus 2 would be 6, then you minus 2 takes you back down to a 4. Or you could think of it as getting rid of a 2 is like getting a negative 2. It's going to move you to the left. Same kind of scenario, move right 4, move right 2, and then you're going to move back 2, down to a 4. So 4 and 2 make 6, and then you add a negative 2 to that, it gives you 4. So what does that mean? Well, removing or subtracting a positive card changes the same way as adding a card whose card value is the additive inverse or opposite. In this case, adding the corresponding negative, such as 4 minus 2, is the same as saying 4 plus negative 2. Subtracting 2 and adding negative 2 is the same thing. And remember, subtracting a positive integer, as represented on the number line, is moving to the left. Just like adding a negative integer moves you to the left also. Alright, here if we have 4 and a negative 2, okay, so you move right 4 for your first arrow, then you move left 2 for your second arrow, it takes you to a 2. Now, how does removing a negative card change that score or value? So let's pretend that I had a 4 right there, move right 4, and then I have a negative 2, move left 2, takes me to a 2. But what if I ignore that and get rid of that and scribble that arrow out? Suddenly, that arrow's gone, now I'm back to a 4 again. So getting rid of a negative card actually bumped my total up, because if I wouldn't have got rid of it, I would have been at a 2. Since I got rid of it, it bumped me up to a 4. So adding that negative there, and then gaining that back once I get rid of it. So removing or subtracting a negative card changes the score in the same way as adding a card whose value is the additive inverse or opposite. In this case, the corresponding positives, such as 4 minus a negative 2, whereas getting rid of a negative 2, is the same as actually adding 2 back to my total. Alright? So subtracting a number is the same as adding its additive inverse. Alright, so let's actually see what these would look like in examples. We're going to set this up and try this method. Remember, subtracting a number is the same as adding its additive inverse or opposite. So every problem we see here, you're going to notice how I'm going to set these all up. Instead of having a subtraction sign in here, instead of 8 minus a positive 2, I'm just going to say 8 plus. So I change that sign, and then I make this 2 the opposite, which is a negative 2. And you guys are good at this. You guys did this in lessons 1 through 4. 8 plus negative 2 gives you 6. Let's try that again. Get rid of our subtraction sign. We always leave the first number the same as it is. We never play around with the first number. But I have a 4, change the minus to a plus, and then this 9 now becomes a negative 9. 4 plus negative 9 equals a negative 5. Negative 3 is out front, so I'll keep that as it is. Change subtraction to a plus, and then change that 7 to a negative 7. So negative 3 plus negative 7 equals a negative 10. Keep my negative 9 out front, change my subtraction sign to a plus, you make my negative 2 a positive 2. Negative 9 plus 2 now gives me a negative 7. So notice how every time I got rid of the subtraction sign, and whatever number came after it, whether it was a 2, a 9, a 7, or a negative 2, I turn it to its opposite. So really, subtraction becomes adding the opposite. That way it's adding, just like we were good at last week. All right, find the differences. We'll do the same thing again. Negative 2 plus minus changes to a plus. The negative 5 turns into a positive 5. So negative 2 plus 5 gives me a 3. 11 minus negative 8 turns into 11 plus a positive 8 gives me 19. And then I get a negative 10 minus negative 4. Well, then that becomes negative 10 plus a positive 4, adding the opposite. That gives me a negative 6. Now, what's this look like in a word problem? It says, write two equivalent expressions that represent the situation. What's the difference? Remember, the term difference means subtract in their elevations. An airplane flies at an altitude of 25,000 feet. A submarine dives to a depth of 600 feet below sea level. Well, I'm going to find the difference. So 25,000 minus, and remember, a submarine being down below the sea would be a negative elevation, so negative 600. Watch this. I can take 25,000, change the minus to a plus, and turn that into the opposite, which is a positive 600. It becomes 25,600. And here's the reason why these problems kind of play out like they do. If you're trying to find the distance of how far a plane is above to how far a plane is below, well, you got a distance of 25,000 here, and you got a distance of 600 here. So you have to add those two total distances, which is what we end up doing here. All right, let's take a look at some of the problem set numbers here. What they want us to do, on each number line, find the difference of each number and 4, and complete the table to support your answers. So in the example they did, they took 10, and they got to take away 4. Notice how every single problem here, they just take away 4 every time. Then we turn it into adding the opposite. So instead of 10 minus 4, it becomes 10 plus a negative 4, which gives you a 6. And you can kind of look at these as you go through them. I'm not going to go through all of them, but you can see how those got set up. And pause the video if you want to take a peek at them. All right. And let's take a look at some other problems here. It says you and your partner are playing the integer game in class. Here's your cards for both hands. Okay, your cards, you had 4 of them. Your partner's, they had 4 of them. Find the value of each hand, and then who would win based on the current scores. Closest to 0 wins. Now you, if you total up your 4 cards, negative 3. Your partner's at a negative 1. So that means your partner's the winner. They're closer to 0. A negative 1's only 1 number away from 0, and you're 3 numbers away from 0. Find the value of each hand. If you discarded the negative 2, that means you get rid of this card, and you get a 5 instead. So you'd have a negative 8, a 6, a 1, and a 5. You'd have a 4 now for your total. Now your partner discards the negative 5, so get rid of their negative 5, and they get a positive 5. Okay, so no more negative 5, we're going to put a positive 5 in there. So it'd be 9, 5, 2, and a negative 7. Now their score's a 9. So use your score values from part B to determine who would win the game. You would win the game, because now you're only 4 numbers away from 0, and they're 9 away. All right, more of our just basic problems here. Good practice. If I took a negative 2 plus 16, well, that's just our adding that we had last week. But remember, if you have two opposite types of numbers you're trying to add together, I have 2 negatives and 16 positives, so you have more positives than negatives. So take your biggest number, which is the 16, take away the 2, and you get 14. It's a positive answer because more positives. Here, the rest of these got set up as subtraction, so we're going to set them up as adding the opposite. So it becomes negative 2 plus a positive 16, and that becomes a 14, just like we had last problem. This becomes 18 plus a negative 26. There's more negatives than there are positives, so we know it's a negative answer. Take 26 minus 18, and we get 8, using our skills from last week. Negative 14 plus a negative 23. Well, they're both negative, so I know it's going to be a negative answer that I'm adding. And just add them up, and you get negative 37. 30 plus, I'm going to change it to a positive 45. I get 75. Okay, we're not going to really spend much time on number 5 here. Let's slide on down to number 6. Kind of like the problem we had in our examples a few minutes ago, right? 2 equivalent expressions represent the situation. What's the difference in their elevations? An airplane flies at an altitude of 26,000 feet. A submarine dives to a depth of 700 feet below sea level. Difference means subtract, so I'm going to take 26,000 minus a negative 700. Change it to adding the opposite, and I get a distance of 26,700. All right, thank you for watching, and go ahead and try your homework assignment in Schoology.